Do you think we're going to see a lot of real estate agents leaving the industry?
Based on the private groups that I watch on social media, there are a lot of realtors that literally are out of their league. They have no idea what they're doing. And I
Yeah.
don't know whether that's just ignorant realtors not paying attention to what's going on. I don't know what it is, but if there's anything I can recommend that realtors do, it is to listen and learn because there are going to be changes, and this may not be the end of it. There may be more to come.
Welcome to Grit Media and Leslie, and I'm going to say this right? Rouda Smith,
That is
right?
right.
Okay. I am so excited to have you here today because I had the pleasure of meeting you in Scottsdale at the Awesome Women's event and conference, and I just loved talking with you. I thought you were an amazing lady. You've accomplished so much. And I just want to talk. This podcast is really going to be about where real estate is today, a little of the history behind it, and I think a little more women influence here to kind of talk about where women should go in real estate. I'm Maureen Kiley. I'm the CEO of Real Cheeky, and I'm introducing Leslie today to talk about, let's just start with your career and your background. I think if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're located, why you sell real estate, what's your passion, and kind of a little bit of history about your real estate.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thank you for having me as a guest, Maureen. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, I was raised in real estate. I jokingly say that I was conceived in real estate because my father started his company when my mother was pregnant with me. So, I don't want to tell you how long that company's been around because they probably figure out how old I am, but not that that really matters. But my father grew his company to be one of the largest independent real estate companies, certainly in central Ohio and in the country. He also had a franchise division called Real Living, which was under Home Services, along with Berkshire Hathaway. Unfortunately, Real Living did not survive COVID, although it was a great company while it lasted. So, having grown up in real estate, my father was the 1991 president of the National Association of Realtors. And of course, I was the 2022 president of the National Association of Realtors. I am the third second generation president in almost 120 years. So lots of progress being made there, I guess, if you want to call it that. Although I was only the seventh woman president, and women represent 2/3 of realtors. Our next woman president will be in 2027. So, and her name is Christine Hansen, and she is from Florida. Great lady.
Oh,
So
okay.
we do have another woman on the line coming up, which is extremely awesome. But I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, born and raised, and I am a graduate of the Ohio State University. I'm sure you all get tired of us saying that. Oh, for any Buckeyes out there. But I graduated from Ohio State, and then later on in life, not too much later, I made my way down to Dallas, Texas, where I live now with my husband. We've been married 38 years, together 40. We have two children that are, guess what? Realtors. And so they're third generation realtors. Everyone in our family is a realtor. Everybody. It's like we don't know any better. That's all we know. But I wouldn't change it. It's funny. My degree is in television and radio and communications. And obviously, I'm not using it that way, but I use it a lot in the way of speaking and all the other things that I do. I actually wanted to be a DJ because I love music and I grew up dancing. So that was my dream job. And hey, you never know, when I retire, that might be what I do.
Yeah. Well, you know what? So in music, I love music too. Like you can do so much in your marketing with music. People don't realize what you can do with all the technology we have today in having cool songs in your videos and things like that. And I think that would be a fun job to have, be a
With
DJ.
it. Well, see,
Like,
what I'd really like to do in conjunction with that is work at a gas pump at a lake where I could pump gas, jet ski during the day, and then be a DJ at night. That would be the life.
Wow.
That would be the life.
That's like radically different from real
Yeah.
estate.
But I still get a little bit of that anyway.
So how come you think there's only been seven women presidents of NAR?
Well, I
What do
mean,
you,
I think
what do
it's
you,
been a man's world. And of course, when you think about it, Women's Council of Realtors was started for the very reason that women didn't really have an opportunity to be in leadership roles, several decades ago. And having grown up in the business, I've kind of watched this through the years and seen how more and more women have gotten into real estate. And as I mentioned, 2/3 of our members are women. But, when I was a little kid growing up, they were stay-at-home moms. I couldn't
right.
name one woman I knew that worked when I was a kid. Certainly times have changed and now we're starting to make some progress. But my dad's president-elect was a lady from Virginia named Dorcas Helfand Browning, and she was the first woman president in 1992 of the National Association of Realtors. The second one was in 99, then 2003, 2007, 2010, and then 2018, and then me.
So
So,
that means like it really didn't start till the 90s, where
correct.
women really started to get more active in their role of the association.
We have
And
a lady here in our area, in the Dallas area, who just passed away. And she was very well known with a large real estate company, but certainly somebody who had been very successful and could easily have been our NAR president. And she wanted to be NAR president, but wasn't allowed to with the company that she worked with because it was owned by a man who wasn't going to let a woman have that opportunity. Today, it would be so much easier for her to do that. But sure would have been great to have her because she would have been a fabulous national president.
yeah. So what is the path to president? So kind of tell us what you did to get there and other women that might be considering it. What do you have to go through in order to get to be a president?
Well, it takes a lot. And certainly, you have to volunteer at the local, state, and national levels to get there. And it's usually better to progress from local to state to national, although that's not how I did it. But there were various reasons why it didn't go that way for me that were out of my control. I have a father who is no longer with us, but he is from old school where, you do not come to the office without pantyhose on. You do not come to the office wearing pants. Your job is to stay home and raise my grandchildren for me. So even
Wow.
though my dad was the 91 president, he gave me zero opportunities. If I wanted an opportunity, he would tell me that is for my brothers, of which I have three. So I don't think he would have been overjoyed if he'd been around and me being NAR president on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm sure he would have been proud. But he didn't help me get where I am. I had to fight for it myself without any help from my father because my first committee appointment was in 2003 or four. So it's like 13 years after my father was national president. So that lets you know that I didn't get any help from him. I did not ride on his coattails. I literally had to claw and fight my way to where I am because I wasn't going to get that kind of help. And I knew that. But then I kind of went through are you doing this because you want to do this and because the members want you to do this? Are you trying to do this to prove something to your father? So I had to go through a lot of just, self-talk and
Wow.
doing the
Yeah.
right thing because, I've met other women who had dads like mine that he was just very, very strict. But just being involved, we have two main offices. We are based on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Those are the headquarter offices for NAR. And we were founded in 1908. And then our other big office is the one that faces our nation's capital on New Jersey Avenue in Washington, D.C. So I kind of look at you either come from the D.C. side or the Chicago side. I was very unusual. I was a balance of both. And it's rare
Wow.
someone work their way up through the ranks that isn't heavy on one side more than the other when I was very, very equal on both, which I think gave me an opportunity to know a lot more about the association. Plus, it's funny having a dad be a national president, you would think, oh, I would know so much about NAR. But let me tell you something, until you're really involved at the highest levels, you have no idea just how much NAR does for us as its members. And I know we're going to get into that.
Okay. All right. So tell me a little bit about though, because you were post-pandemic, um, and you led NAR through it. Okay. And everything in real estate has in a lot of ways changed after the pandemic, right? During the pandemic. I lived in California at that time, so I know what all the realtors went through that process. It was a nightmare. Not every state was as bad as California. And what do you think were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during that time as president? What give me two things that you think were the biggest challenges?
Well, certainly it was a team effort. So we have a leadership team. So all of us played a role in bringing us through the pandemic. And of course, I jokingly say I came in with a pandemic and I went out with a hurricane. Hurricane Nicole hit on my last meeting in Orlando, Florida in November of
That's right.
2022. I thought, this is just, oh, so much fun. I will tell you the hardest thing when it first hit was how long is this going to be? How long are we going to do what we're going to do? And how are we going to do what we are going to do? Because we've got these big, huge crates full of all this technology, and none of us knew what Zoom was. None of us knew how to use any of this equipment. So they had to FaceTime us to teach us because we didn't get the Zoom thing yet. Remember, we were on the forefront of this. We literally were way ahead of our government entities when it
Yeah.
came to virtual meetings with Zoom and other platforms as well. And so I had 4 devices set up in my study at home, and we have wood floors. So I have a chair with wheels on it, and I would have 4 of them set up ready for 4 presentations in the morning. Then I would reset those 4 devices for the afternoon meetings that I was presiding or chairing over. So it was a lot, but I'm going to tell you, if it weren't for the National Association of Realtors and getting our government to see real estate as
Yeah.
essential business, we never would have gotten back on track as quickly as we did. There was only one state that was a holdout, and it was tough. I mean, I had people calling me, can you talk to our governor? And, I'm like, but you're friends with them. Why don't you talk to them? But it was very difficult on that one state in particular. It was not California, by the way. It was on the other side of the country, but it was so,
Wow.
so hard for them. But one point that I would love to make for anyone, any realtor that received the PPP, which was the payment protection plan through the pandemic, that was the first time in the history of our country that independent contractors were a part of a stimulus program. And you can absolutely thank the National Association of Realtors for that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really good things the association does. Unfortunately, the current situation that we're dealing with, which I was just in Tampa at an event where Kendall Bonner, the VP of Industry Relations for EXP, was there, and she's also an attorney. So we did a local event and we talked about what's going on in the industry. And NAR has gotten really huge. I mean, when you think of an organization, what is it now? Larger than the gun lobby?
But
So,
it's the largest trade association in the
yep,
world. And when I was the
yeah.
president, we had more than 1.6 million members. Now we're less than that now, but we budgeted 10% loss in membership and we've only lost 2%. But I think things are going to shake out a little bit more after things went into effect on Saturday, August 17th, as well as other changes that may be forthcoming.
So one of the observations I saw in this room of realtors from Tampa Bay area was massive confusion. And I made a point to the whole entire group that, look, you guys, it's really it's just the practices that were being promoted and encouraged through the brokerages and through the forms and through all this is what got us into trouble. And we have to recognize the law. And because I have an artificial intelligence digital assistant that's in the transaction side of real estate called Agent Sidekick, we had to investigate the law, not just what the association said to do, the local association or the national association. We had to actually investigate what is the law and what is required because technology doesn't necessarily have to use association forms. And there's been a practice of, attorneys use their own forms, attorney states use their own forms. They don't have to use association forms. And this kind of got us all into trouble in the negotiation side of things because everything in a contract is negotiable. And I sat in that room listening because I was a speaker on technology and marketing, but I was amazed at how many people were so completely confused. And they made it even more complicated. And I mean, we always believed in buyer agreements anyway, but nobody really put them together in years ago. And I was talking with people afterwards, and I said, you have to just follow the law. And when you got your license through the state, it's regulated through the state and you can make a decision. You can just use an attorney. I actually encouraged them with this whole mess. I encouraged them to just hire a real estate attorney to do the paperwork. And some of my people in New York and New Jersey that have been basically telling us about what their processes are,
Mhm.
it made more sense. And they're not, agents aren't attorneys anyway. So there's a fine line with all of this. And I think there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out of it. I do think, and you tell me, because that's the next question for you. Do you think we're going to see a lot of real estate agents leaving the industry?
Based on the private groups that I watch on social media, there are a lot of realtors that literally are out of their league. They have no idea what they're doing. Some of them don't even know what happened on Saturday. They don't know what August 17th had to do with anything in our business. And I
Yeah,
don't know whether that's just ignorant realtors not paying attention to what's going on, or they have brokers that are out of sight, out of mind, and not minding the store. I don't know what it is, but if there's anything I can recommend that realtors do, it is to listen and learn, because there are going to be changes and this may not be the end of it. There may be more to come. So be ready for that. That's one thing I've learned having grown up in real estate, is that realtors don't like change. They didn't like it when we went from MLS books to computers. They didn't like it when we went from, dial up little what do you call lock boxes to what we have now with the key boxes that are digital. People don't like change. And I go back to the days when things were a whole lot different. I mean, I was a realtor in the 80s when we represented the seller, period.
yeah,
End of story. Everybody, even if you're working with the buyer, you represented the seller because they were paying the commission. And then all of that kind of changed, with the buyer representation. And, in a way, if you're going to work with a buyer, they are the ones that should be paying the fee to have you work with them. And I really, the two big things are that we can't put a compensation fee in our MLS, and we must have buyer rep agreements. Believe it or not, there's a lot of states that require that already and have for some time. My state has always had it available, but it wasn't required until
right.
now. So those are just some things we have to adapt to. But I had somebody tell me that they've gotten out of some of these private groups because they feel like there's just so much collusion and issues within. But I said, I understand your point and you make a valid point, but I learn a lot from that, because somebody may say, okay, this happened to me today. What would you have done? And you get all kinds of different answers. And there's going to be one in there or two that you're going to say, that's how I would handle it, because that's me. But the one thing I have noticed more than anything in these private groups that has been extremely disappointing is how many realtors use the word base, standard, whatever percentage. I mean, it's just crazy. I saw where somebody cut the grass with what
Yeah, they were
the
talking about
seller was
that.
offering. I'm like, well, you'd have to have a drone to know that. Then I saw a post that said, I'm going to start making my list price end in a 2 or a 3. Fight me on it, NAR. And I responded, which I rarely ever do. And I said, I wouldn't worry about NAR, but I would worry about the DOJ, because I have been told by some good sources that the Department of Justice has people trolling those private accounts to go after individuals after we're done with these class action lawsuits. So be careful, be aware. And if you have agents that are on your team or in your office or company that are doing these things, you need to talk to them, because they could
Yeah.
be in more trouble.
Well, and the other thing is too, I truly believe is that um these groups that are talking, that half of them don't I mean, let's just talk about raising the bar in real estate, right? And talking about the consumer. Okay. So first, The entry to become a realtor is really easy. You take a test, you really don't learn the business. And yes, you have to do continuing education. I do believe that the National Association of Realtors has one of their assets in that organization is to provide education. Okay. But they kind of put everybody in this mess with some of this stuff too. So you have to be cognizant of the law for your state, but then you also have to know, in order to be a realtor, you have to be part of NAR and to have that designation as call yourself a realtor. And so it's kind of interesting how, there seems to be so many agents out there that are not educated. And that's what I think. And I originally thought it would be more like we'll lose 30% of the real estate agents, but I think it's going to be a flip. I really do. I think, and I actually was literally on with a real estate agent this morning, on behalf of another agent that's in our platform. And he's like, I'm really seriously thinking of getting out of the business. And I said, well, why? He goes, because I represent buyers. And I said, well, this is an opportunity. If you think of this whole scenario, you can go out and you can be a listing agent, you can have buyers. There's so many choices. You build your business as long as you follow the law. And so I think it's interesting that you brought up some of this where people should be looking. And I do think that the groups do provide value to people so that they can make their own decisions. But brokers do need to get together and need to figure this out, because there's going to be a lot of lawsuits, which brings me to the consumer. We don't know how the consumer is going to react. And Leslie, just to kind of give you a perspective from me, I've been in the real estate space for a long time too, but in a different capacity. And I know enough about the real estate contract, a lot. I mean, because we automated it with AI to read the documents. So, and I've been on this journey for 7 years almost. And how I look at it is, from a consumer buying real estate, I know enough that I don't need buyer representation. I don't need a buyer agent to show me a house. I mean, when you think of technology and you think, oh, you can go online, and what was the stat? I can't remember the stat that NAR put out a stat about how the most buyers find their home online, and then they call the real estate agent. And so we're going to see a lot more of that with tech, but the personal relationships are always going to be there, especially with luxury and unique markets. And but we may see a move to, 5, 10 years from now, where people are, I mean, I bought my home in Florida online, did the inspections. I found it online, and people can do that. So the consumer hasn't really decided yet. And I literally got an email from my sister regarding this. One of her real estate agents in Florida sent her an email about the NAR settlement and how it impacts. And she goes, what the heck is this woman doing, sending me this long, detailed email about the buyer commission? And I said, I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to read this. And it was not very good explanation. And the consumer is ultimately going to decide, like, am I willing to pay a commission to a buyer agent? Am I willing to pay, is the listing side? I mean, all of this is going to be up to the consumers. What if listing agents say, sellers say, I don't want to pay a commission to the buyer side?
Right. But
We don't know what's going to happen, right?
the ones deciding this for us are attorneys who do not work for free, who get paid as soon as you choose to enlist them. And they get a retainer, and then they get so much an hour. And that includes phone calls, making copies, mailing something, whatever it is. But then they're the ones coming after us. And I don't mean they as a whole blanket statement.
Right.
But certainly, that's how this all began. Is with an attorney who was the plaintiff's attorney in the class action lawsuit, of which there are many. And by the way, a lot of you may not know that we've been fighting 17 seller class action lawsuits, 2 buyer class action lawsuits, and of course, the Department of Justice. And one thing to know about the Department of Justice, I mean, when you think about, that they come after us supposedly like every 8 years, but I'm hearing that they're coming after us more, which I think as a parent, I think we can see that. More difficult things that have to do with changing the way we do business, which it's not that we're not capable. We are adaptable. It is not easy sometimes to have change, but once we get the swing of all of this, everything is going to be fine. And then you'll wonder why we ever did it the old way. And I think we're going to see a lot of people like that. But again, I do believe, Maureen, you're right. There are going to be people that are going to get out of the business, especially people who might have been within a few years of retiring, or maybe their business isn't so great now that interest rates are up, inventory is down, and it just makes it, this is a good time to find a real job in their mind. And we may see more of that. I mean, who knows? When my dad was president in 91, we had 720,000 members. I mean, I had more than double that as president, but their prediction back then was that they would go down to 500,000, not increase. And then look how much we've increased over all these years up till now. So, it is interesting. I do think that we all need to do a really good job of understanding our market and what we are doing, because there are good realtors and there are not so good realtors, just like there are doctors, attorneys, CPAs, and whatever else. So you need to interview, realtors to see which one's the best fit for you and someone who's going to do a great job for you. I always have this great example when the market was crazy. And my daughter had a really good listing that she was getting. And she said that she was going to put it in MLS that afternoon. And I said, well, I thought you told me you had an event to go to tonight. And she said, I do. And I said, well, Kristen, if you put that in there now, I said, you aren't going to your event tonight. You're going to be busy fielding multiple offers. And she goes, Mom, I'll be fine. I said, do whatever you want to do. It's your business. So guess what happened? She put it in there. She had 27 showings and I forget, it was 20 some offers. So no, she did not go to that event that I told her she would not get to. But this is the part that I thought was very interesting. And this agent was actually in our office. She was so angry with our daughter that her offer wasn't countered on behalf of her buyers. Well, my daughter's not the one that makes the decision, the seller does. They own the home. They decide what they're countering and how they're going to counter it with the guidance of the realtor that is representing them. So my daughter called me and said, what do I do? I said, tell her to write a backup. So she called her and asked her to write up a backup offer. And she said, no, I am not doing that. She made that decision on behalf of her buyers. That was not the best decision because the person who got that house was the backup offer.
Yeah, right.
Will never know that they lost it. And the other thing she did that kept them from getting a counter offer is she put something in special provisions that there's an odor in the attic that needs to be addressed. Well, we have an option period in Texas. That's when you would do that. That agent's not in business anymore. And thank goodness, because what an embarrassment that we have a realtor that would do business that way. And that buyer didn't lose that house once, but twice because of the agent they chose to use. So it is important to use someone who knows what they're doing. And you know what? I think people who are confident in the landscape that we're dealing with today are going to be better realtors because they feel good about their knowledge and what they bring to the table, and they can negotiate whatever they need to negotiate. And to me, that's going to be one of the most important parts of being a realtor going forward.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think the people that are going to stay in the industry are going to elevate the industry, and it needs to be. And there are some great real estate agents out there. There's no doubt. I think now there's 41 lawsuits pertaining to, I believe, a new stat recently. Just so I don't know if it's NAR related but there's like 41 real estate related big cases out there.
But not necessarily buyer or seller. There are different ones like MLS and things like that.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because, all of this comes down to is practices, right? And so if there were no agents, real estate agents that signed up as a member, the membership would not exist. So where do you see this going forward in the industry? Because I know that there's companies looking to exit. And if you look at like even just you want to do your own set of forms. Coldwell Banker, I believe, in California just came up with they're having their agents do a 4-page listing agreement. And I talked to a lot of agents, because of transactions, right, in our platform. And they tell me they don't see the value of belonging to the association. And they said the only reason why we belong to the association is because that's the only way we can get to the MLS and the forms. And so, and I do want to talk about this in a minute too. All of you amazing people who are not employees of NAR, but you amazing real estate agents, realtors, work for free for that association. So I'm curious as to what you think about this whole organization and where it's going to go and how is it going to change? How is it going to, I mean, honestly, some policies and things are antiquated, and there's going to be a lot of challenges out there, not only from the standpoint of forms or the DOJ, but also challenges in technology. Have you heard anything? What is your pulse on this in regards to where the association is going to be going?
Well, and that's always an interesting question. And, we need a crystal ball to figure that out. But there are companies, and some of them very large, who are no longer allowing their agents, even though they're independent contractors, to volunteer until at least we get through all of these lawsuits, because it's for litigious reasons. They just don't want the liability. And, I can't say I blame them. One thing I will say about being involved is I certainly know what's going on in our profession, and I can share that with buyers and sellers, unlike the majority of realtors, because they're not involved. Also, the referrals that you get from the relationships and friendships that you make are huge. I literally know someone in every single city in the United States. And if I don't know someone, I know someone probably within 5 to 10 minutes of that city. So if I ever was broken down in a car, in a rental car somewhere, I could get on social media and say, help, this is where I am. And I bet I'd have 5 to 10 people in a matter of minutes. And I'm not exaggerating, because I've actually seen it happen. But I also have those connections all over the world, because NAR is very global. We have 110 bilateral agreements with about 80 countries, and they come to our conference to learn, because nobody does it better than the United States. Our MLS is really our claim to fame. They don't have that in most other countries. Many of them are trying to have that, but it's been very, very difficult. There is so much that goes on while we're out listing and selling real estate. There are so many things that we have passed or defeated in our favor at the local, state, and national association of realtors that our members have no clue about, because they don't read anything. They don't listen to anything. If it doesn't affect them, it doesn't matter. They're just going to keep going on with their business. But one thing that I've always thought was one of the most interesting things that we have in Texas, we call it TreePack instead of RPAC, just for Texas real estate. But we have what we call the TreePack calculator. In that calculator, it lists everything we've passed or defeated in our favor and how it would affect us as realtors. So I had someone take the best year that ever had, and I'm talking at least 15 years ago. And just in that time, we're talking 15 years ago, big difference in production between then and now. I said, pick the best year you've ever had and fill in the numbers. It was more than $100,000 in additional fees and taxes, that if it weren't for our local and state association fighting for us while we're out doing what we do best. And now it would be more than 100,000, because we all make a lot more than we made 15 years ago. So just imagine that. But if it doesn't ever affect you in a way that you know about it, then it never happened. And here's the problem that I see. We are the voice for real estate, because we are the largest trade association in the world. Well, if we're all going to split up and splinter to other associations, who's going to carry the water for us? Who is that going to be that's going to take care of that? So I believe in NAR. I believe in our state and local associations. And quite frankly, I don't know how we would be where we are today without all 3 legs of the stool. And it's important that we all be a part of it. Honestly, I can't imagine not being involved. And a great example, when I was chairman of the Texas Realtors, we're a homestead state, and we had a homestead exemption that was being increased. There were a couple other parts to the bill that we had, and this was several years ago, but I'm talking to the leaders in Texas as their chairman. How many of you have talked about Prop 1 with your buyers and sellers? And Maureen, not one hand went up in that
I
ballroom.
believe it.
And I said, y'all are here learning all this. Why are you not using it to your benefit? Example, what if you were on a listing appointment this morning and said, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, because we're a homestead state, certainly that's important to you. Let me tell you about Proposition 1 and why it's important for you to get your family, friends, and neighbors to all vote for it. And by the way, are you interviewing any other realtors? And when they say, well, yes, we have 2 appointments this afternoon, then you say, you know what I would do? I would ask them about Prop 1 and see what they think about it. And you know what the odds of them knowing what Prop 1 are about 0. They're probably not even registered to vote. So take advantage of what you do, what you are, what you learn, and use it to your benefit. It can make a huge difference. And another thing, just to throw this out because I want to make sure we don't forget it, RPR, Realtor Property Resource. One of the #1 benefits that we have at the National Association of Realtors, we as members, we all have it. We all have access. It costs us $13.50 of our dues every year, so just a little over $1 a month, and it's one of the best resources we have. And if you're not using it, I can assure you your competitors are. As a matter of fact, I had somebody tell me there's a real estate company that is recruiting agents from another real estate company, also realtors, because they have RPR. But the company they're recruiting them from does too, but their broker doesn't seem to know it. So they're recruiting people over to their company for something they already have at their old company. But it's not being
Interesting.
promoted. So just think about that. This stuff didn't grow overnight. We were founded in 1908. So you can just imagine what has, all the things that have come about. And I would say another one of our top initiatives is advocacy, which I've talked about a lot. So hopefully you all are seeing the advantage of that.
Well, and also too, I would say that that's one of the big founding reasons the association exists. You do fight for property rights, agents, initiatives and causes, and I think that's all really great. And there are different things, but there are some things that are not so great, right? And I just want to ask this question because why, if you are in the organization, helping with the organization, why aren't you guys paid? I mean, and I'm just going to point this out because the president, the CEO of NAR was making $2.6 million, and the California Association of Realtors CEO is making $7.6 thousand. Some of the salaries that are paid to the top people in the organizations is really high, while real estate agents running their businesses, managing their families and their lives, and working for free in an organization that basically, when do they have, I mean, really, the time that they spend in this organization, some of them I know because I only was a membership director for Women's Council of Realtors for my local association, right? And I couldn't believe how much time we spent and the requirements that were put on us to just do 5 or 6 trips a year that we had to do and take time away from our families, our work. And I find it interesting where if you follow all the money with the associations and who they're considered nonprofit, but they have a lot of for-profit that they're in. Why is it that agents continue to do this? I mean, you gave up a whole bunch of your time for these organizations, and I just can't understand why you wouldn't get paid. I know you get stipends, you told me, but
That's only for the officers, the elected
yeah,
officer.
why is that? I mean, why is it structured that way? Do you know?
Well, first of all, there's so much to gain by volunteering. I mean, your payback is what you learn and all the referrals that you get. So it does pay for itself if you work it correctly. Like I always say when I go to Texas meetings, I tell my local board, hey, y'all, I'm not going to be hanging out with you because I want business from other people. I mean, somebody from my market is not going to refer me business more than likely. And then
Right.
when I go to a national meeting, I tell my local and state, hey, love y'all, but I'm not going to be hanging out with you because I'm, wanting to get referrals with people all over the country. And I know when people think of Dallas, they think of me and my family. I mean, I've got kids that sell real estate. Our son is now in Austin, and then our daughter is here in the Dallas area with us. And then my husband is farm and ranch. Well, anybody who's looking for land or a work working ranch or something like that, he's an expert on all of that and on mineral rights and things like that, that I'm not. So that's what I get out of it, what I learn, what I bring to the table, because when I talk to a buyer or seller, you can tell I know what I'm talking about.
Well,
And
absolutely. I mean,
because I've been around the block a few
hands
times.
down. I don't know. I think, and I'm coming from the tech world, okay? So I'm coming from the standpoint where there are some things I don't like about the National Association of Realtors, and you and I have talked about this. And I certainly don't like the sexual harassment stuff going on. And I do think, from a woman's standpoint, women have got to step up. And I think women are amazing leaders, way better than men. So, so I'm like, where are all the women there? Because of course, you were raising your family at the same time of doing all this, right? So I mean, I feel like it's time for a change of the guard, and some changes need to happen because technology, if you look at all of the things through reach program and things that they have, they're making money off of all of this. And agents, I feel from the ones I speak with on many occasions, that are not necessarily, they're busy producing. Okay, some of the top agents in the country don't go to events, don't do these things because they're busy producing. And their jobs right now are very difficult. If you're a producing agent, I have an agent down in Miami, that uses our technology, does 70 transactions a year. And the way the processes are done right now are antiquated. It's extremely antiquated. And it is absolutely because of those forms. It is absolutely the reason why technology has been stifled, and the relationship between real estate business services and lone wolf. So, and this has got to stop, because there's opportunity. And I think that's why the DOJ is going after them, because there is antitrust here, and they have some monopolies that are going on and stifling. If I was a top producing agent, I would want the best technology in the world to streamline my business. And today we don't have that.
Right.
And that's my beef with it.
But there's a lot of agents who don't understand technology, or they're old enough they don't care to learn, and so they're not going to adapt anyway. And when I go back to the one thing that you were talking about a little while ago, when it comes to professionalism, we've tried everything at NAR. We literally had a blue ribbon panel that I was on back in like 07, 08. From that was born the Realtor University, which is now outside of NAR and with another university. But, bottom line, it boils down to our states determine the requirements to get your license, the requirements to keep it active. So whether it's a new agent to keep active with continuing education, or someone who's been around a long time like I have been, they determine all of that. Texas is supposedly one of the hardest, if not the hardest state to get your real estate license, and it's not hard. So I totally agree with you when you made that comment, because our states are the ones that decide. It's actually kind of funny. When I was coming into leadership, I had people sending me emails, Susie Q and John Doe, they did something they shouldn't have done, and I think you should take their license. And I said, well, if you look at your license, it didn't come from the National Association of Realtors. It came from your state. So we don't have any control over any of that. And of course, I never hear from them again, because they're embarrassed that they didn't know where they got their license. But all you have to do is take a look at it, and you'll see that NAR is nowhere to be found on there, because they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I would tell you, though, that we do have a culture issue that is being worked on. We have a culture commission. We have outside counsel. We have outside companies helping us. We have 3 different pillars of it. One is staff, one are the members, and the other are association executives and government affairs directors together in the 3rd pillar. But it is all to help, hopefully, change our culture. I think it's a daunting task. We have yet to see, how the changes are going to play out, because we haven't really been given what the changes are. But I would say one of the things I find very frustrating, which I see a lot just in the world we live in, period, is the multi-tiered justice system. It's okay for that person to do this, but it's not okay for that person to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I see things like that that are very frustrating to me. And, I don't know if that will change or not. I can only hope and pray that it does. And, hopefully we will all remain hopeful that things will change. I do think that we have a lot of great leaders. I know we do. We have some fabulous people that are involved at every.
And yeah, and those people need to step up to the challenge to help make those changes be made. Because I think in the area of women in leadership, technology, we're the agents. I'm fighting for the agent and the consumer here in regards to technology, because I get it that there's an older generation that is still doing the old way, whether it's a realtor or whether it's a consumer. But there is a huge pack of young people coming that are going to inherit that wealth and are going to want to buy and sell real estate. And I look at people like Gary Massa, he's an EXP agent in San Diego, young, 40 something, intelligent, impeccable real estate agent. But he is so frustrated, and a top producer in luxury can't stand, has to go here, 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 and here to do his job. And he doesn't volunteer in the organizations. He's out working. He's a family man with 2 kids. And honestly, there's lots of women like this too. And they're working really hard, and we're not giving them the right tools. There's MLSs that put tiles, a million tiles on there of really crappy software. And I think what we're going to have is a massive, something has to change, and it's going to change with the forms, Leslie. I'm convinced of that. And the forms are not consumer. They're not consumer centered. They're broker centered. And until we can find, that's why I would hire an attorney. I would never, ever use an association form ever again in real estate, because I've read most of them, and they're not consumer friendly. And at least if I have an attorney that drafts my agreement, then I can go work with my real estate agent. And I think the agents that recognize that they really don't want to get in the legalities of things, you're brilliant, because you've been in the industry for 40 years. You've seen every freaking contract possible. But most of these people, they don't even, I couldn't believe some people never even read the contract, and they're going out and selling real estate. And I'm like, what are you doing? So, I've been in the industry 17 years and on the transaction side, and I cannot believe you top people have wrote the worst contracts I've ever seen. Just pay the money to an attorney. I like the one agent I know down in Naples, Florida, Claire Chesnoff out of New York. She goes, I don't care. I'm hiring an attorney, whether we use the title company or not. I want my client to be represented, and they appreciate that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, in the future of, this is not about, for me, about changing the relationship, because I think the relationship's always going to be there. I just think we could do it better. And I think I'd like to see real estate elevate more. And NAR is about memberships. Membership is about money. If you don't have members, you have no money and you have no organization. And this is where NAR needs to step up. And if they want to keep it going, they need to bring in more women. They need to stop the sexual harassment, which, by the way, is not just with NAR. I was talking with another agent about in the building construction. And she was an agent in Florida. And she says, I couldn't believe the sexual harassment happening in my own organization with these builders. And she goes, I had to quit. She goes, I didn't like it. And I don't like feeling that way. And it happens in lots of industries. It's not just real estate, but these things have to stop. People are going to get frustrated. And I know there's other brokerages. EXP is infiltrated with some of these lawsuits going on, right? And I just think that we need to recognize that women are a force to be reckoned with. and men need to realize that women, especially as the younger generations, our daughters grow, right? and they excel in their industries. Women are making headways in the United States like never before. I mean, here I am, a woman founder, and you have this amazing career where you had to wear pantyhose in the office.
Except when I moved to Texas, I didn't have to. I told my dad they didn't sell them here because it's so hot. And he at first believed me, but then he didn't. But
Oh, I
you know,
know,
along the
right?
lines of what you're saying, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I'm the only president in almost 120 years to preside over a majority female leadership team, but we
I
represent
know.
2/3 of realtors. Well, I was told by the CEO that people were tired of hearing it. I said, wow, you probably shouldn't have told me that because I'm a rebel. And I will say it until I drive you all crazy. And I would get up in a ballroom and speak and say, this is what I was told. I don't really know why I was told that, but you know what? You don't know me, but here we go. And then I would just go on about why it's so amazing that for the first time in our history, we have a majority female leadership team. But, I look back to, I look at our daughter, who is a huge producing realtor. She also does what we do as real estate. She invests in homes. She buys tax deeds in bundles. She has an Airbnb that was in the top 10 Airbnbs in the Dallas area. It's not in existence anymore, but then she's got condos that she owns and rents out. And she and her wife just finished season 4 of Battle on the Beach. And Ty Pennington was their celebrity for anyone out there who wants to go watch HGTV. But, it's just so fun to watch her grow and blossom. And when I look at I was real involved in the Home Builders Association as well, but I never learned as much about building a house. And my dad was a builder, a developer. He did his own blueprints. I mean, my dad was amazing. He was self-taught in all of this. He did every kind of commercial from industrial. He did multifamily, retail, business commercial, you name it. He did everything. He drew the plans for everything. And I'm like, why don't I know more about building a house than I do, or just building in general? But it's so great that we have this daughter of ours that we can just say, hey,
Yeah,
when you come, if you have a listing out this way, will you stop by our house? We have a few problems I need your
yeah.
input on. And she was here the other day and I said, here's the issue. And she goes, yeah, mom, that won't work. And I said, I didn't think so, but her dad had bought it. So I said, well, your father bought it. So we'll just have to smile and say, this is really nice, but it's not going to work. But anyway, it's just so nice to have that kind of knowledge on our team. And she's not at all phased by any of this, Maureen, at all. Like literally, these changes are just another day at the office to her. It doesn't phase
Yeah,
her.
I know. And it's probably because she's so experienced and she was raised in your business too, right? And learning everything third generation realtor. And I do think I'm excited about the future. I am. I think there's going to be a lot of change. I definitely feel there's a lot of change that needs to be done. And I feel like that the people who succeed in this business going forward are really going to have an amazing career.
I
And
do.
I look forward to the future here. And I do look forward to working with really, really brilliant real estate professionals
Mhm.
because our job, my job as in my company is to help them succeed through the transaction, through their marketing efforts. We have a whole nother marketing arm called Hyper Growth that we recently launched because we feel like so many agents need that support that they don't necessarily get from the brokerage. Many brokerages are really good and a lot of them are not. And they're not supporting the agents in the way they need to because there's a lot of brokerages that are those subscription kind and they just don't do anything. I mean, I don't know
Some
how they're
people
going to
who don't even
bypass
know
them.
who their broker is or
Yes,
who to
I
go
know.
to. And
They're like, and they never go to meetings. They don't hold meetings. I actually talked to one in the Tampa Bay area, a broker, has 1,200 agents. They do nothing for them. I was like, why are you not offering these kinds of things for your agents? They need to know these things. They need the support. No, they're independent contractors. They can do what they want to do in their business. And yes, they are.
until you
But if you
get
want to be
something.
a really good brokerage, you should support your agents and give them the tools that they need and keep them educated. But it is ultimately an independent contractor, right? And the real estate agent does need to take responsibility. It is a complicated emotional process buying real estate. And it can be very like if the right agents aren't involved, like you mentioned earlier, then we can have a lot of conflict in you have to hold yourself up like if you were working for a corporation and you were negotiating a deal. And you just don't get emotional and you just don't get, you have to keep your business head on as a realtor. Otherwise, you don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with women. I think it's going to be great. And I look forward to doing some more conferences where we bring real estate. We're starting a mastermind in Tampa area, and Kendall and I and Amanda. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how we develop that and keeping women in and in men too, but women informed and keeping them educated and collaborating because there's plenty of business out there for everybody.
There's plenty for all of us. I mean, I remember times when I wanted something and I didn't get it, and then something else came along that was better. I couldn't have accepted if I'd received the thing that I had wanted before. So things do happen for a reason, but I was all about empowering women. And that was not that I don't think there are a lot of great men, because I certainly empowered plenty of men as well.
Yeah.
But I did want to give women opportunities so that when higher level positions are appointed, that they would have something on their resume that would scream that, oh, this is the right person for that. And, I just had somebody from another state who literally, she thanks me every single time she sees me for the opportunity that I gave her and all the doors that it has opened for her. But I picked her because it was a very, very important decision and position to have during my year as president. And I wanted someone who was just off the charts amazing. I didn't go out and seek that person. She sent me her resume and then a letter telling me why she was the right person. I had other people asking for the same position, but they didn't go that extra mile. And when I looked at all that she had to offer, I thought, how could I go wrong? And it was
Right.
amazing what she did. And I mean, she was a shining star for me in 22. And so were so many other people. And, the two highest positions that a president of the National Association appoints are vice president of advocacy and vice president of association affairs, both of which are voting members of the 7-member leadership team. And both of mine were women. There were two men in the past, two past presidents, men that had two women vice presidents. We've never had a woman who had two women vice presidents. And
Wow.
it's interesting when people ask me, like, what's the number one leadership tip you've ever gotten in your life? And it's not going to be at all what you think it is. There was somebody that I served with that I really liked them. I thought we got along really well, and I pretty well get along with anybody, anything. I mean, I am pretty easygoing, and I don't like to, I don't like conflict. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to have a cohesive, balanced friendship, working relationship, whatever it may be. And I finally asked somebody that I knew this lady better. And I said, tell me, what can I do? Give me some advice. They said, yeah, you can't. I said, no, I think I can, if you just give me some pointers on what I can do to maybe, handle things differently, or just some insight. And this is the answer that I got, Maureen. She hates women. And
Wow.
I was so taken back, I couldn't even talk. And
Yeah.
this person said, did you hear me? And I said, yeah, I heard you. And they said, well, you're not saying anything. And I said, I don't know what to say, but I'm going to have to absorb this and think about it. So every time there was an interaction with this woman, that other person was talking in the back of my head, and I would just pay attention and I'd go, dang, that lady was absolutely 100% right. Why did I not figure this out? And then I came to the realization, watching her interact with men and the difference in how she interacted with women. And it was night and day. Her body language, what came out of her mouth, everything. And I thought, wow,
Hmm.
it's like we cracked the code. But I don't know that I would have cracked the code without the advice that I got from this other person. So I always look back and say that is the number one best piece of leadership advice I ever have received, because I finally came to the realization there's nothing I can do that's going to change this, because
Yeah.
she's not changeable. She is who she is. Just do the best you can to get along with her. And that's what I did. But yeah,
Wow.
But that's the only time, though, I got to tell you, every other woman I've ever worked with, they've been amazing and they truly do care and they're passionate about what they do. But again, there are plenty of great men who do the same. And there's a lot of men that I see in leadership that I see futures with as well, because they're also that amazing.
That's good. So, what's your outlook for as we wrap up here? Your perspective on, and what are you going to do? What's your next move? Are
Well,
you
I
really going to be a DJ?
Yeah, I might be right. Well, I joke around and tell everyone I don't need your vote for anything as long as I live because I'm not even going to run for dog catcher. I am just enjoying being back more active in our business with our team right now and coming up with new ideas for marketing and things that we're going to do. So I'm excited about that. I really do love real estate and enjoy what I'm doing. And just a little side note, which is kind of funny. When our kids were younger, they wanted to get their black belt. And I thought, oh, I would love to drive to karate every day of the week for how many years? And they had to do that, thing with the master where they signed it to make the commitment that they would fulfill the requirements of their black belt. And I said, okay, I'll drive you there every day. But dad and I have two things we want you to do. And that was a college degree and a real estate license. I don't know if I'd push too hard for a college degree in the world we live in now, but I told them it's funny. They both got their license. They're 2 years apart. Our son is the youngest. And they both got into real estate at different times and said, well, we don't want to be like you and dad. We do not want to be a realtor. And I said, you know what? That's fine. You don't have to be a realtor, but what you do have to do is keep your license active for the rest of your life so that when you make all the money I know you're going to make, you'll know how to invest it. And that might be one of the best things I ever did with our kids because they're never allowed to let their real estate license lapse because I let them get their black belt and got them there every day. So we had a deal that they have to fulfill. And you know what? Now they're both back in real estate again after going and waiting tables. And I said, well, what's it like to pay someone else's mortgage? And then go, huh? I go, well, you're paying the owner of the restaurant's mortgage. Do you not get that? And then they started seeing like, how did you and dad come to all of our practices and games? I said, because we are independent contractors. We don't work for anybody else.
This is
But
true.
then they started realizing what a huge role we played in their lives growing up that they too can do with their own children. They don't have them yet, but when they do, if I ever get to be a grandparent someday, hopefully in this lifetime. But in my future, I want to enjoy life. I want to spend more time with my husband and our family because my husband, without him, I could never have been what I've been,
Yeah.
where I've gone. You can't do that without support. And I'll be the first to admit I was married before to someone who no one would have ever known me because I was under his control 100% of the time. So I never would have been able to come out of my shell and be myself and learn and give back like I have. So I am ever so grateful for my husband and all that he has done to make my life easier and be there for me. And, and we love working together. I know people say you actually work together and you still like each other. We've worked together for decades and yep, we do like each other and we love each other and it all comes together. But one thing different? He loves to go to the office every day, and I love to work from home. That's why it works.
Hey,
Probably.
it works out. Yeah. My husband's awesome too. He supports our company. He's retired, but he goes with me on all the events and things because his background was in sales, but he was also a professional hockey player way back, but a goaltender. So we're big hockey fans. But Leslie, I can't wait to see you again in person. I went to college in Dallas, Richardson.
Oh,
So I am going to make a trip. I have a friend that just moved from Carmel, California to Dallas. So I am really looking forward to coming to Dallas again. I've
yes.
been there in a few years. So now I have a new friend.
Yeah, just don't come in the summer.
Why? It's the same weather as Florida.
I don't know. I think it's 105 today. Can you beat that?
No, not quite. Yeah, I guess you're right
It's
about
hard,
that.
but it won't be long and it will change.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time out to do this. I think this is going to be good. And